I'm Rebecca Koch, the Interim Director of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and really honored to be serving in that position for just a little longer until we hire our new director. And really honored to be bringing this presentation, this With Liberty and Justice for All presentation during Arab American Heritage Month. And we'll be taking a look at some of the history of Arab immigration in the U.S., the experience of Arabs and Arab Americans in the U.S. And we're going to start, I think, with some introductions. We have another participant that may be having a little issue with time since she is in Saudi Arabia, so we hope to see her coming very soon. But we'll start, and I'm going to ask um, Asma Al-Hindi McClarty to introduce herself. She's an alumna of Life, and but she's a whole lot more than that. So, Asma, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Asma, and I graduated from Life University 2019. And ever since, I decided to stay here instead of going back home with a lot of different reasons. I think we are going to talk a little bit about that today. But for me being from Life, I think this is one of the things that make me feel Life is a place that make me step on my outside of my comfort zone. And I see myself as a baby with a 2 years old. As a baby, 2 years old, the first steps when I walk out of Life University. So I appreciate that. The university so much. I appreciate nutrition department because there where I get comfortable with my English. With I got my degree, and for me being from Saudi Arabia, a very beautiful country, and very comfortable living and very luxury lifestyle while I was living. But I decided to stay here, and we'll share a little bit of my story throughout the presentation. But I hope you guys enjoy the time. And as you know, this is a Ramadan, a holy month for us, and I'm free to answer most of questions you have.
Thank you, Asma, and happy Ramadan.
Thank you.
And next we'll go to Munira. It's very good to see you and ask if you might be able to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience here in the U.S. and at Life University, if you'd like.
Hello everyone. My name is Munira. I got my master's degree in nutrition Life University, and I have been in the United States for years. And I was lucky to have this opportunity. Now I'm in Saudi Arabia. As in our brief meetings, my feeling towards United States that I feel I am half American, half Saudi. Even though I am now in Saudi Arabia, I still have this feeling toward the United States because there is something inside me cannot be forget. Yeah, I cannot forget it. It became part of me. It shaped my personality. It changed my vision of life. My my behavior, how I do my dreams now. So yeah, this is me.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very glad you could be with us today, and I know the time is a little different for you there, Manira. And I'm going to ask that it may be, well, I love seeing you, but I think your bandwidth may be a little bit limited. So if you have any connection issues, it may help to turn off your
Oh,
camera. And then we'll at least be able to hear you because we're getting just a little bit of
yeah, sure.
hesitation. Okay. Oh, thank you. And we'll see how it works. Maybe your signal will pick up in a
Okay.
little bit. And then next, our own Dr. Hussein El Sanjak.
Oh, okay. Well, Thank you for the invite. It's a great thing. Same here for me. I came here a long time ago to get educated. I went to Egypt and I graduated from medical school and I practiced medicine in Egypt, but I really want to do something like special, and I couldn't find what I want until I ran into chiropractic. I actually was like a general practitioner for about 4 years, and when I heard about chiropractic, that's what I wanted to do. So the other thing is I really want to get educated in the US because US is the Mecca or the empire of the universe. And that's where you get the highest education and the highest, at least that's what I thought as a person who is young, growing up in Egypt and looking around for opportunity. Where is the Colosseum of the universe? Where can I sit there and prove myself worthy? Excuse my analogy, but it's just that's how I felt. I said, America is the greatest place. He says, I'm going there one way or another. And chiropractic came into my life. I can tell you, I spent 2 years trying to kind of do the right thing to come to get educated in the US between all the paperwork and everything. And I was lucky enough to start here in 1986. And I feel that I'm very, very blessed to make that decision and to join Life University because as Asma and Munira said, really, you grow here. And this institution not only give me the degree that I want, but I had the opportunity to meet great people, great leader, and I learned so much from so many people, and I felt it's my home. At some point, I felt I'm 2 years old as a Munira when I was walking in, but now I feel I'm like have somewhere approaching maturity within the next few years or so. But I owe it all to Life University, and I think Life University is actually a microcosm of America. That's how I feel.
You know, I'm really glad to hear you say that, Dr. El Sanjak, and I'll just share before we move on to this next section that many of our students, a few years ago, we made a special effort to look at diversity and have some discussions around diversity. And many of our students at that time reported, and I would bet you they would still report, that Life University was the most diverse place they'd ever been before coming to our campus. So I love the fact that we are, in fact, a very diverse population and hopefully getting more inclusive all the time. So the next thing we're going to talk about just a little bit is this idea of the name of these seminars for ODE, which is With Liberty and Justice for All. So we know that the ideal of America is to be inclusive of we the people, of all citizens, and all people treated fairly in the eyes of the law in our country, but that hasn't always been the case. And we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of the Constitution and some legal precedents and what was going on historically. But first, we're just going to talk for a minute about the history of Arab immigration in the U.S. And I, of course, invite our participants to jump in and share as need be as I run through this fairly quickly. But the first part that I think is helpful to share is these are the nations of the Arab world. So I think all three of our participants today are more familiar with all of these countries. As I told them earlier, I don't expect them to be experts on every country in the Arab world any more than I'm an expert on every state in the U.S. Or every country in North America. So these are these countries in the Middle East and North Africa, and I know Dr. El Sanjak had a few comments when he first saw the map. So, anybody like to share anything about their countries or their neighbors or just the Arab world in general?
In Egypt, in America, we say from sea to shining sea. In the Arab world, we say from the Gulf to the ocean, from the Arabian Gulf by the shores of Bahrain and Qatar, as you see on the right of the screen, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. This is the land that kind of engulfed the Arab nation, which is the unity of this piece of land, along the unity of the language of the Arabic language and the unity of the purpose and history of the Arabs in general.
I love that. From
So
the
we are Arabs, proud of being from the Gulf to the ocean.
there you
من
go.
الخليج إلى المحيط, as we say it in the Arabic language. This is like from sea to shining sea.
I love
Every Arab I can say, I can tell you, I can speak on their behalf, is proud to be Libyan, Algerian, Saudi, Egyptian. And for everybody who lives in America that I met, they are all happy to be Moroccan American, Egyptian American, Saudi American. America, as Asma said, always leaves a part in you because it really teaches you a lot of stuff and give you the opportunity to move into the uncomfort zone and find yourself, finding your strides. That is the beautiful thing about America.
Thank you. Asma, did you want to share something?
Is a very basic thing. He mentioned that already. The language, we could all say that we all speak Arabic, but we have a very different accent. And most of the time, if I hear somebody speaking in Arabic, I know where they are from, even though the language is not the language, the accent is very, very different. Like most of the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Yemen, Oman, we speak kind of the same language, but like let's say Tunis, Libya, Morocco, Egypt, they all have their own like very unique accent. We can understand each other most of the time, but we have like very each one has a unique Arabic, accent.
Interesting. Kind of like in the United States, right? Everybody speaks
Yeah,
English very differently, and you can kind of pinpoint where people are from as well. Interesting.
exactly. Yes.
Interesting. Manira, would you like to share anything?
And no, I'm fine. Thank you. They
Okay.
mashallah share every.
Thank you. Okay, so the next piece that I think is pretty interesting, it was interesting for me to learn, is that in the 1880s, when Arabs first started coming to the U.S., they were mostly from Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, right here in the middle. And Dr. Philip Heaty, who's a professor of history at Princeton, wrote an article during World War II that sort of described this early immigration. And he described them as having been mostly men, mostly from poor backgrounds. They mostly arrived in lower Manhattan, and when they came, they believed, like a lot of immigrants to the U.S., I think a lot of our families who immigrated to the U.S. came with this idea that the streets would be paved in gold, that there were just riches for the picking up. And I think, like a lot of immigrant groups, when they got here, they were probably pretty disappointed by the reality that they found, but they were by no means discouraged. And part of why they came and were attracted to the idea of being able to make some money was mostly people wanted to be able to return home and have enough money to build a house. And he also added with a red brick roof, I think maybe he said, at the time. And then once they got here, they largely worked as peddlers or street sellers of icons from the Holy Land. And then they moved into selling laces and sewing notions. And by 1900, so within 20 years, they'd become prosperous enough to begin opening small stores, mostly in large cities. Most of the Arab immigration has been concentrated in large cities, and they had begun to spread into large cities all over the U.S. And by World War I, just another 20 or so years later, they had become manufacturers of apparel for the most part. They also lived in areas where they created areas known as Little Syrias, which were very much like the Little Italies and Little Chinas that other immigrants created when they moved in and kind of grouped together for solidarity, community, and understanding. And then the immigrant groups and the people that were already here and had already been in the U.S. for a while, they really misunderstood the Arab world. They weren't great at geography and misidentified them as Turks and Assyrians. So people from all over the Mideast were known as Turks and Assyrians for a long time. And then the thing that happened right after the first Arab folks came to the U.S. was the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. And this is a very pivotal moment in U.S. history and constitutional application of the law and that kind of thing. But I'm just going to really hit the high points here. So there had been, prior to 1882, a really strong push from the European immigrants and the other immigrants that were already more established to exclude Asian immigration. And mostly they talked about Chinese. They sort of misused that word like they misused Turks and Assyrian, right? So they sort of just called this whole swath of people across the Middle East and up and all the way across India and into China, Chinese. So there had been a real push to exclude folks because they were worried about job competition. The railroads in particular had attracted the Chinese coming in from California and building the railroads from the west and then to the east to meet in the middle. So they had sort of been forced to take lots of really dangerous hard work like that. So, however, even though there was this push to stop that immigration, there was a treaty with China, a U.S. treaty with China that said, no, we won't exclude Chinese immigrants. We just won't do that. But then that push continued, and the treaty was renegotiated and altered to say that the U.S. could put limits on Asian Chinese immigration. And then as soon as that was agreed on, about as soon as the ink was dry, it looks like, the U.S. immediately banned immigration for 10 years and said, we're just prohibiting it. But they banned it for 10 years. So what does all that have to do with Arabs in the U.S. and Arab Americans? Well, because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, all Asians and people who were deemed Asian had been disallowed from and also excluded from constitutional and legal protections. And in California, they had passed a law that said no Chinese person could testify in a court of law against an Asian person, against a white person. So Asian people could not get redress, nor could they serve as witnesses in the event there were crimes against them or crimes in which they were involved or witnesses. So in 1909, a case came up where George Shishim, who was from Lebanon, he was a policeman. He arrested the white Caucasian son of a prominent politician, which didn't go over very well with this politician. And during the court case that followed, the argument was made that not only since Shishim was Asian, he could not testify against the son of the politician, and he shouldn't have been allowed to arrest him either. So that was kind of what the case was revolving around in court, to say Shishim's not white, so he shouldn't even be in court making arrests or testifying. But then Shishim countered with the argument, saying that since Jesus was from the same part of the world that he was from, if Shishim wasn't white, then Jesus wasn't white. And as you can imagine, the judge decided that Shishim was white. And after that, it made all Arabs and Arab Americans white and provided them with a lot of benefits that Asians and Asian Americans continued to be denied until 1943, because that Chinese Exclusion Act was renewed and carried out until World War II, when the U.S. decided we had better be a better ally to the Chinese, because China was our ally in World War II. So that was probably the biggest landmark case and application of law in the Constitution in the U.S. where Arab Americans were concerned, and that was in 1909. So now we're just going to go up to the current day, or close to it, and say that during that time, Arabs have continued to move into typically larger urban areas. There now are Arab populations in every state in the U.S., and this tends to be where they're concentrated. And I'm going to stop for a minute, and I think Dr. El Sanjak wanted to add some information right here. You're on mute, sir.
Well, as far as the current rate of immigration in the last maybe 50 years, I think it's a little bit changed. I think because after the Second World War and America has become the dominant power, all the young, ambitious people, after they finish, a lot of them looking, what's a better place to be? How can I excel? How can I do well? And that's why you find America was like the magnet for everybody around the world that have youth and have something to offer and have ambition. So you'll see people come from all over, not only from the Middle East or from the Arabia, from everywhere. But that's what's the trigger right in the last maybe 50 years for people to come and get educated in medicine, in engineering, in physics, in chemistry. America has established itself as the superpower, a place that is comfortable, have great education, great atmosphere, liberty, justice. So it really is a dream of every young professional. Some of them achieve the dream and they are always thankful, as I am, as Asma has indicated, and as Munira. And some of it just the dream elude them and they get married and get kids and whatever, get involved. So I can tell you, we're so blessed to be here. We're so proud of this country. But the reason we came is to say we are worthy of being there. And if I may step way out of my boundary, and I don't know why I'm saying that, but I will. Mr. The Lebanese, George Shushman, he was alluding to Jesus and himself. If I'm back there and I have to do it again, I will says, if I am not worthy, then Jesus is not worthy. I will probably just omit the word, if I'm not white, then Jesus is not white. I would tell the court, if I'm not worthy, because in the Middle East, we have a lot of color variants also. So that's probably the only thing. If I have to change history, which I can't, I'll probably use that term in lieu of the word white. I will say worthy. The individual is worthy to be here. That's my little input.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and I'm just going to move just a little bit more. So we talked about this. And then by 1940, there were about 350,000 Arabs and Arab Americans in the U.S. And today there are over 2 million, and they live in every state. However, I thought this was important to note as well. There is no specific demographic, or at least there tends not to be a specific demographic category for Arab Americans or for Arabs to identify themselves as a cultural or ethnic group. So it's very difficult to estimate and very easy to undercount the Arab American population. It is thought that it is pretty greatly undercounted. And to provide better data, the use of a Middle Eastern North African or MENA category has been proposed and would likely serve to more equitably represent Arab Americans and Arabs in U.S. Census counts. And then just briefly, Arabs and Arab Americans in Georgia. Georgia is the 17th most populous state in the U.S. when it comes to Arab American population, and it's estimated to be about 57,000 in Georgia. And then by country of origin here in Georgia, you can see this little graph. The largest group is from Iraq, followed by Somalia, and then it says Morocco, but it looks to me like Morocco and Egypt are pretty close to tied. And then the fifth group, mostly from the Sudan, and then this shows by county where the most populous counties for Arab residents is. So Clark is the least, and all the way over to DeKalb being the most with more than 10,000, and that puts us at Cobb with somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. So if anyone's interested in this presentation, let me know. I'll send it your way. But I'm going to close it now so that we can focus a little bit more on our panel and start with them. And I'll start with a question to ask, what would you like most for people who aren't Arabs or Arab Americans to know about you and your family and folks from your country and what it's like living in the U.S.? What do you really want people to know?
I'll go.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, I would like them to know that I'm very proud to be Saudi. Me leaving my country, it's not only living. My country is very good country within a lot of different stuff, a lot of different areas. When I decided to stay in the United States, I just have a different approach. It's not the thing that I wanted in Saudi. It's a very great country, and I want them to know that me leaving there, it's just me focus on different aspects that I like at the United States. But I love my country, and I love the way a lot of stuff have been dealt in Saudi Arabia. But I was looking for different approaches and different goals. That's why I decided to stay here. And there's a lot of people that get mistaken about us leaving our countries and came here. I don't have a war in my country, and it's not a dictatorship. It's not bad place. It's a very good place. A lot of Americans would love to stay there and would love to live there. And I have American friend who started to learn Arabic because they like Saudi Arabia. So that's exactly what I wanted to share with everybody who think that we leave our country because it's bad. It's not bad at all. It's just me having different approaches than most Saudis. That's why I decided to stay here. And we'll go in further details, I think, in this presentation too.
Okay, good. Munira or Dr. El Sanjak, would either of you care to share a little bit more about what you want people to know about Arabs and Arab Americans?
I think we'll start with Munira and see her input in there. And then maybe I can finish if there's anything that I need to add.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. I don't know. Do you hear me?
I'm sorry, say it again, Munira.
Do you hear me good?
Yes, we got you.
Okay. So what I really want to everybody to know is that there's a huge difference between religion and culture. Don't judge Arab in their behavior like it's religious, because we have a lot of cultures here, and some people think that this culture is part of the religion of us. So Islam is different than Arab culture. There is a huge difference between this and this. What I would like to share as well about Arab, I don't know, I think they misunderstood by a lot of people because of a small part of us have been being acting crazy. So a lot of us was misunderstood that we are not kind, I think. Yeah, that is.
Understood. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, what I heard is sort of the basis of it's where stereotypes come from, right? We take one small group of people and then we say, oh, everybody who's like them is like them, rather than, oh yeah, that's a small group of people that may or may not be representative. So I think we saw earlier with the large number of countries in the Arab world and the differences in accents that you spoke about earlier, that there's also a lot of differences in the cultures between each of those cultures, between each of those countries. And what I heard Munira say was it's not necessarily based on Islam, it's based on the cultural conditions in those countries. So thank you for sharing that, and I think you make a really good point. Dr. El Sanjay, what would you like to share?
Uh, I think these are very important points. I mean, the Arab nations have its own culture, as Munira said. But again, the religion play a core part of their value. They are largely 80% or between 80% and 90% of the Arab nations are Muslim, and about 10-15% are Christians, and we have Jews. So the actually intermingling of religion there is typically, for most part, is very, very smooth and decent through many, many years. Recently, there's a little political unrest created by political and kind of a religious background. But all in all, religion is an integral part. Of course, a lot of people, as been alluded, that Islam have a, is being affiliated with terrorism, whereas a small group of radicals have tainted that picture for a while. But I know and I can see that people are getting smarter and realizing that Islam is a pure religion, does not condone, does not promote, have nothing to do with terrorism. We're never being asked as Muslim, which is 2 billion almost around the world, that fighting or killing people that are innocent people is anywhere part. So this is a part that has been a problem, but I think that right now is getting much better. People really start understanding that. Furthermore, the Islamic world is not really the Arabic world. They are not synonym. Most of the Islamic world are outside Arabia. They are Indonesia and Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. There's people in Southeast Asia. So there's a lot of countries that are like 95% Muslim, and they are not Arab countries. So Islam is actually a religion for all people, just like Christianity. The Christian demographic of the planet is 3.3 billion. And the Islamic demographic is about 2 billion. So it is a significant amount of people, but all domain having that. If you talk about the Arab itself, the Arab, as far as the Arab are very welcome. They actually love America. And they would like very much to kind of show America who we are. We are very generous people. We welcome them to come, and we have no animosity. Every now and then you see a conflict, and I always say, governments are government, our people are people. Somebody in Egypt have an American neighbor. Your American neighbor has nothing to do with Donald Trump or George Bush or what Biden did. So you do not need to create a fight because a president of a country did something. That is really a big part of us to develop grow up as human. If I disagree with a leader of a country did something, the people of this country really has nothing to do with that. So you don't want to punish people based on some acute political situation. This is the only other thing that I would like to share with people. And that's where I stop.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions based on some of what you said. And I would, of course, invite all of our panelists to share. But one thing that you and I spoke about, and I think Asma and Munira were with us as well, you talked about being a good neighbor. I thought it was really interesting that you said that part of Islam was being a good neighbor, and that was what kind of prevented people from I don't know, taking advantage of situations and that kind of thing. Would you like to share just a little bit more about that?
Well, I can invite also my colleague to kind of share, because one of the core things that we know, aside from us inherently, the Arabian people are generally like neighborly, but with the Islamic teaching, one of the most important part of the Islamic teaching that a lot of people may not know is a very strong recommendation of you have to be good to your neighbor if you want to be a good person, which really, if you translate that, a neighbor is a unit, and a neighbor have a neighbor have a neighbor. If you look out for your neighbor as if he is a family, don't do anything to offend him, try to be sensitive to his needs, whatever, that's like that is the core. And I think Asma and Munira give an example of a lot of time in the Middle East till today. Somebody's making a salad at home, and wait a minute, there's no tomatoes. Okay, till her son is like, hey, Mohammed, can you go to whatever next door to Rebecca and tell her my mom need two pieces of tomatoes? It's like, no problem. She goes and knocks on the door. 2 minutes later, he's come back with a bunch of tomatoes and maybe an extra carrot or something, just, as a bonus. So that happened in my house and happened, as said, in Asma and Mir's house. Very, very common. They knock on the door like, I'm running out of butter. Can we? Oh, no problem. Here it is. We actually do that till today. Of course, it's getting a little different now, but that is how united we are with our teaching that your neighbor, if you are not good to your neighbor, that's really not a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you just think about it, you see your neighbors more than you see your family sometimes. Like for you, you visit your mom and you visit your auntie maybe once a week, twice a month, stuff like that. But your neighbor, you definitely going to see them pretty much every day, leaving and coming back. And if you didn't see her for 3 or 4 days, we knock the door. Hey, you guys, are you okay? If they leave in the house, they say, hey, we're leaving for like a week or so. Can you just, this is my key. Can you just plant? Can you put water in my plants? Can you make sure that if it's raining, if it's sunny, can you just take care of the yard or something like that? And it happens. So we do see our neighbors more than we see like extended families. So that's where we come. If you are a good person, you are going to take care of your neighbor. And if you take care of one neighbor, the other neighbor would take care of the other, then the society, all of it will just like follow the same lead. So that's very common in our culture.
But now, Asma, I want to ask if you don't mind sharing what happened at your house when you said to your American husband that you were just going to go next door and borrow a tomato. What happened?
Yeah, I wanted a tomato, and I just told him, hey, we need a tomato. He say, okay, I'll go grab one. I'll go to the store. I said, why did just we knock the neighbor's door and just ask for one tomato? And he said, you crazy? You have a car and you have a license. You go get your tomato from the store. And I was like, but why? He said, we don't do that thing in here. And that was a very huge question in my mind, because neighbor, like we have the same wall, we have the same like outside window, we can see ourselves on the same balcony, but he would rather go to the store, get one tomato and come back instead of just knocking somebody's door. And think about it, if I knock on their door, I want tomato. If they want a cup of milk, a cup of sugar, a cup of coffee, they would knock on the door, and then we will have a relationship pretty much like family, like throughout the years. So yeah, that will happen. And I had to go to the store and get me a tomato instead of just knocking on somebody's door and ask for it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know what made people think right now is like, so where's my privacy? Privacy is very strongly emphasized. You knock on the door and you stay 4 or 5 yards away from the door, and you see if the door is open and there is like or if the door didn't open, that's it, you just get back. So if there is an issue, they even open the door, they open the door. You're not gonna knock in the middle of the night and says, can I have, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to be reasonable also and respect people. So it's not like an open door policy, they can come in whatever. These incidents happen maybe once a month, once every 2 months, maybe 2-3 times a year. But when you need it, you really need it, because it's 5 minutes and the whole thing is gonna burn, and we need to put the onion now. So we need the onion stat.
Yeah. Munir, I'm going to go to you since you're living in Saudi right now. Would you say that neighborliness and knocking on the door is true? Like, even, I'm going to preface it, I'm going to back up a little bit and say, I would say that we were more neighborly in the U.S. many years ago, that we are becoming less neighborly. But I would also say that it's different maybe between small towns and big cities. So, Munira, would you say that neighborliness is across the board in Saudi, or do you mostly see it in small areas or big towns, or what's your take on that?
So, actually, it started, especially in big cities, to decrease. especially among those uh, younger people. So for my mom, as Asma said, if she lost anything or she was in need for anything, she will ask her neighbor. But for me or for my brother, because we are all the time busy, we don't know them, we don't sit with them, so it's gonna be a little bit weird for us to ask them about grabbing something. But if I have a trouble in my car and I haven't find my brother or my sister, of course I will ask my neighborhood, even if I don't know them. I know they are kind and they will help.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for that amplification from where you are in your position as well. So, the modern day busyness is getting to all of us a little bit. It sounds like, and Dr. Lamarche has shared that
For
there's a
just
very
5 minutes because I am fasting and now I need to break my fast.
yes. Thank you, Manira. We really appreciated you being here with us, even though that you were at the end of your fast. So I'm sure you're ready. Um, I'm gonna. Speaking of that, because it's Ramadan, um, and because Dr. El Sanjak said earlier, he talked about Arabs being generous people. I read something recently. So, number one, I'd like you to share a little bit about Ramadan and the implications. And I know it's the holiest time in the Islamic calendar. But also, I saw two phrases. The one I had always heard was for Happy Ramadan was Ramadan Mubarak. But this year I saw the emphasis on um, the generosity, and so that the phrase that was being encouraged was Ramadan Kareem, which was to have a generous or a rich Ramadan. So, would you like to share a little bit more about the difference there? And
Saudi Arabia is the place, is the Mecca, no pun intended, of the Islamic world. I am going to have ask my sister in Islam, Asma, to kind of a start, and then I may finish if I need to.
All right.
Or you
So
bounce it back to me if you. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know
no,
you can.
I'm fine. No, I'm fine. So Ramadan Kareem means it's a generous. Basically, when we were raised, whether it's Ramadan or not Ramadan, you have to be generous. So when somebody knock on your door and come to your house, we always provide something to them. Always, either they come just to pick somebody or they just come to drop something. We always ask them to come in, and we provide either juice, salad, whatever, ice cream, whatever we have. It's something that it's most Arab countries do. So that being said, Ramadan is the holy month. So you have to be kind to everybody around you. And most of the times in Ramadan's like table, it's like full of food. And when we do our plate, we plate something for the mosque, which is like the place that every like people go to pray. So every day men go to pray. So my mom cooked 2 dishes of every plate, 2 plates of every dish, one for us and one for these people who is praying inside the mosque and they did not have food. And that's where everybody eating for free, basically. And that's like you being generous to you, to your neighbor, to the people in the mosque. And most of the times that we cook for ourselves and we fix a plate to the neighbor. And we have a joke that you plate something and you give it to the next neighbor, and the next neighbor plates something and give it to the next neighbor with your plate, and the next neighbor plates something and give it to the other neighbor until that same dish come to you.
All right, see you later.
Okay, so you understand what I'm saying? So the same plate come to you around all neighborhood. You're just going from a place to place, like in 3 or 4 days, you have your plate with a different food. So that's when us being generous with our neighbor, with our family, with the people at the mosque, we don't even know them. But we're just being generous because we know God provide this food to us. God give us that money, that health, so we want to service him with like giving people who are in need, or just to give them like, hey, thank you for being my neighbor. I'm not taking you for granted. I want you to know that we're there for you as much as you are here for us. Stuff like that.
Asma, can I interrupt just a minute?
Sure.
So I was joking with my mom. I told her that she is cooking for our neighborhood more than us. Like when I come and see my food, I was like, you have been cooking the whole day. Where is the food? She was like, they are يعني poor, and some of them don't have family to cook to them, and they are working. So I think it's better. يعني I don't know if you know kabsa. It's popular food here in Saudi Arabia. So she will just cook the kabsa for the neighborhood, and for us just sambusa. It's kind of funny, يعني.
Oh, but I'm sure there are some dates on the table, is there not?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because kapsa is a beautiful piece of meat and on rice, but I know the dates are very important in Ramadan.
Yeah, sure. You
Oh,
can finish.
thank
So,
you. Thank you, Munira. Dr. Hussain, Dr. Sanjay?
yeah, for me, again, Ramadan is a beautiful month. The fact that you're not eating and you're being ordered not to eat or drink, it gives you like the sense of how poor people. There are people in this world till today, they don't have no choice but do Ramadan because they don't have food. So it's in a way, whether you're a president of Egypt or a king of Morocco, you will be fasting and you will be deprived from food, no matter how hot or cold it is, because it can happen to many people. It makes you appreciate a sip of water. It makes you appreciate a little bit of cup of coffee just to get you in. You can't. Therefore, it gives you a little bit of discipline, appreciation for all the blessings that you have. Waking up and open the fridge and look, what do I want to drink? You can't drink anything. So it gives you a little bit of a really kind of a good appreciation of the value of all the blessing that's bestowed upon you, being living in a comfortable way. And so that is one part of Ramadan. The other part of Ramadan is a personal experience of mine because probably in the Middle East, some people as they do Ramadan, they said, "Oh, Ramadan, no, no, we don't work too much in Ramadan. It's Ramadan, whatever." And they take Ramadan as if it's like an excuse not to go to work, whatever. And we've been like that. And once when I was in medical school, it was a 7 o'clock clinical rounds, and I'm dragging it's like it's important round. I walked in there, and it's Ramadan. So like I'm tired, I'm hypoglycemic, I'm like a lot of people actually pretend or do, but not all of them. And then I walked in, and the professor was standing there with a beautiful suit, beautiful tie, clean shaving, sharp as a tack, and he went for 2 hours in a beautiful. And I'm looking at him as like, this guy's in Ramadan. And I said, "Are you fasting?" He says, "Yes." "What's the problem?" And I was like, all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, man up. And from that moment, I said, you know something, Ramadan or not, I'm going to go to events. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to look good. I'm going to smell good. I'm going to feel good. And I have been adapted that for day one, and it's working for me. If there's a party and people having food, I can join the party. It doesn't even faze me. Asma can agree with me. You go in there, people eating whatever, it just, I don't even feel it. I'm going for it. So there's no question that there is a little bit of blessing bestowed upon us once we commit to the month. So this is one of the good part of Ramadan. And I can tell you there's no better bite than 16 hours of fast, and then you have whatever it is. If it's a piece of cracker, it is so good.
Yeah, and I do want to share something about you, as you mentioned, that it's the Islam religion give us opportunity to feel how hunger feels. So we take food for granted. We are living in a very but we have food every single day. Sometimes we eat more than 3 meals a day. We never felt like how these people feel when they're hungry. So that gives us an understanding that, hey, there's somebody is in hunger find them, donate some money, donate some clothes, donate something from your time, from your money, because these people in need. If we didn't fast, if we're not fasting for 16 hours, I would never know how these people feel. I would never get the hunger. I would never feel like, oh, there is a kid who doesn't have a water right now. And can you imagine how many people right now they're feeling hunger because they do not have a food, a piece of cracker, as Dr. Hussein said. So the only thing that not only the main reason that we fast, it's a discipline for us, as well as feeling the hunger of these poor people, and then it encourage us to give them more, to cook more for these workers outside in the street, to cook more, to give money to these people who are in need. For a little bit of help, $1 would help somebody. So that's another huge part of being fasting 16 hours a day.
Well, I have a question then. What can we do, those of us who aren't Muslim and being part of Ramadan, what can we do to support you, or what can we do if we just keep, I don't know, just loving up on you and just recognizing that what a special time it is, and anything. I see you sort of shaking your head, Dr. El Sanjak. Is there anything that folks can do to support your fast, or to not detract from it? Maybe might even be a better question. Uh-oh, did I freeze?
For people like us as students, and then do not have that strong, solid mentality like Dr. Hussein, I feel like, yeah, I'm serious. A lot of people get like, if we are in a classroom and I see somebody drinking a very cold water in a very hot day, that would make me feel like swallowing my stomach, like I wish I'm not fasting, or I cannot wait until it's 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. So stuff like that. I had a friend when I was in Florida studying for my language. She there is a 3 days of the specific month she doesn't eat anything has blood. So it was my Ramadan, and she said, I'm not going to eat because you fasting. And I told her it's okay. I'm disciplined. I do not mind if you eat. And it was a lunchtime for her and I, so we're very close friends. And she said, no, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat right now. I'm gonna eat when I get home. So you and I will be at the same page. I don't want you to see the food, and it's something I want to do for you. So when she started fasting for anything that contained meat, I believe, or something like that, so I did the same for her. And she said, Asma, I'm okay. That's my religion. I practice this for years. So I'm gonna just get me like a sandwich of shrimp. And I told her, you know what? I'm gonna get a sandwich of shrimp too, because it just, it's. I understand how she feels if I'm eating something she's not allowed to, and it's not me just doing it because I want to do it. It's as much as she felt what I feel, the hunger I felt that day. I wanted to drink water, but I couldn't. It was very hot. It's Florida. And she just stopped doing it because of me. So what I would think from Americans, if we're in a classroom and there is like at least 5 people fasting, I would say it will be kind not to have your lunch all over the table, smelling all like grilled cheese, or like a burger or some chicken sautés with onion or something like that. It would smell, and it would make people feel more hungry than they are. That's the only thing that I would say.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Manira, Dr. El Sanjak, any thoughts there?
Well, I think no, I'm fine. I think everything is being said. There's another thing. If you ask me to prompt, I will say, some people would say, well, fasting is very good scientifically for you. Well, I'm glad to hear that, but I didn't do it for scientifically. I just did it because I was ordered to do it. I'm happy to do it. It turned out to be great. But then the thing that could be a little bit is like, but I don't disagree with, but I disagree with water. And I was like, agree or disagree, thank you for everything. It, my fast has nothing to do, this is a religious, it's a belief thing. So when somebody say, I disagree with the fact that you're not, that sometimes not really a good thing. So you fast, okay, good for you, that's it. But getting into the details of, I heard that it's good for you. So, but if you support, they want to, like, sometimes they come in and try to modify your fast to maximize. And I was like, okay, let's not do that. Let's just say, happy Ramadan, do what you do, I do what I do, and that's it.
Understood. Thank you. That's very good. That's very good advice. Manira, were you about to say something as well?
Actually, yeah, I totally agree with both of them. But I have been as well in Florida and Georgia as well. It's different from Florida. I think they used to have more Muslims there. So it's يعني obvious in Ramadan when we will have classes, our teachers or professors will not even drink in front of us. She will excuse from the class, she will go out and she will drink. It's not affecting me actually to see people eating or drinking, but it was so nice of her to do that. So for me, I am a smoker, so it was so bad to see anybody smoking cigarette in front of me while I'm fasting. It's like, oh my god, nothing more, yani.
Oh, well, and that's a good point. So not just fasting from food and drink, but also from cigarettes and any other comfort type things that we might do as well. Oh yeah,
Yeah, sorry for saying this, but even from 6, you cannot do it in Ramadan day. You can do it after breaking your fast.
understood. So really the emphasis is on purity and discipline and
Discipline, yeah.
and appreciation and gratitude
Yeah.
for what we have and empathy for others. So there's so many layers to the practice of fasting during Ramadan. So what I'm hearing is that the main thing that folks can do to support our Muslim friends during Ramadan is support them, not try to turn their fast into a health kick, and maybe show the support of not drinking in front of them. That it's okay if we do, but the kindness of the gesture is appreciated if someone refrains as well. I think it might be worth saying to our faculty, in particular, perhaps, and maybe to our community in general, that the other thing that we can do is just recognize that folks may not have super high energy levels necessarily through the whole day. And part of the reason that we had this presentation during the day, Eastern time, rather than, and Manira, thank you, because it was a tough time of day for you in Saudi, rather than at our usual time in the evening, was that it would have interfered with the breaking of the fast and been sort of a low energy part of the day. So out of consideration, we moved it to an earlier part of the day, and maybe that's a consideration that we can provide our friends as well, that if we're going to be meeting with or working with our Muslim friends, that we just do that a little earlier in the day out of consideration for where their energy levels might be over the course of the day. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I have a Ramadan wish before next Ramadan, 2022.
Okay.
Goes for my friends in Saudi Arabia or from Saudi Arabia. I would like to have an event in Saudi Arabia to represent Life University and what it stands for. Somehow, if it could be arranged, it would be a really good thing, because we need to show not only Saudi Arabia, the whole world, what is Life University about. So this is a Ramadan wish, and I hope it will be going, as they say, من بؤك لباب السماء, from your mouth to the gates of heaven. And hopefully there will be an event somewhere before 2022.
Inshallah.
I will join you in that wish. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Ramadan?
I'm good.
You good? Okay. All right. So maybe next question. What do you think that people maybe
Look,
have?
I'm sorry. Do we have a timeline? Because I know we have guests that may have a 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock commitment. I wasn't sure. Do we have a timeline? I mean, I'm okay, but I know that Mr. Jar is here and Dr. Downs is here. I don't know if.
Yeah. We can, we, 11 to 1 is our timeline. So, we can stop now to have a few questions from our audience if they have any.
Okay.
Take a little question break.
Maybe we can invite if there's any comment or question from the audience. So at least we can, just focus on if whatever is needed. I know what Mr. Jar want to ask me. When is the next time we're going to have some gyro? And I said the first Thursday after Ramadan. It's a promise.
So I'm just very appreciative of the opportunity to learn more. This is very insightful. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Jar.
I got a quick question. First of all, the presentations have been great. And I always ask these odd questions for some reason, Rebecca. But I'm thinking about, so in the midst of Ramadan, let's say that if you observe somebody breaking some of the tenets of it. Let's say if you saw somebody, not saying Snickers or just eating. I mean, is that punishable by law? Would a person be somewhat shunned or, how would the community respond to that?
They will say Ramadan Kareem just to remind him that, for example, a lot of people get anger when they are fasting. So they will start to load their voices or like doing something bad. So we will just say Ramadan Kareem. So just to remind them that we are Ramadan, please be quiet, be polite. I don't know if Dr. Hussein is agreeing with me. But
I agree. I mean, there are three different scenarios for your question. This is one of them. The other one. Okay. The other one of them, there are stipulation in Ramadan that we are not supposed to fast, even though like you're young, you're healthy. If you are traveling, you are not supposed to fast, regardless of if you're not. So if I'm somewhere in Tunisia and I'm flying, I can break my fast by order. As a matter of fact, it is frowned upon me if I do not take the license that God has given me. He says, if you're traveling, you're not supposed. If you're sick, you're not supposed. So diabetics, I don't know if the guy is diabetic. So typically, if somebody, I can hear him eating, I would say he could be diabetic, he could be sick, he could be traveling, one of the two. Also women
as well.
Women in menses are not supposed to fast. So there's a few people that are not exempted, are not supposed to commit to the fast. The traveler, the sick, a menstruating woman, and children and older people. Those who can should involve in fasting. Those who cannot. And if somebody is eating a Snickers bar, that is his thing. It's like between him and God. He is losing his reward. So I don't want to judge here.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is it's you assume positive intent from if someone is not following the fast. You just assume there's a good reason for them not to. And as Manira said, you might say, hey, it's Ramadan, and then that's it. It's up to them to either follow or not. Interesting. And then go ahead.
I'll say that for me, just because I live here, because I have like adapted to new like community, new way. I don't care if that person is fasting or not. I'm not going to share any comments, just personally. I'm not expecting for them to fast or not fast. That's none of my business. If they eat, that's on them. If they're not fasting, that's on them. I personally do not care. That's on them, because if you're fasting, you're doing this for God, and that's a relationship between a person and their God. So I'm not personally, I do not judge, I do not talk, I do not comment. I do not even think whether she is on that time of the month or she's traveling or she's sick. It's not my call. So that's what my personal comment would be.
Yeah. And also, most of the people that have the permission, like when I travel, I have the permission, so I can take my fast, whatever. We do not brag about it. I don't hang out a bunch of friends is like, I'm traveling, let me get a double burger with cheese. Oh, that tastes up, we're supposed to do something as imsak means hold. Means you're not supposed to fast, means if you're thirsty, go get some water. But don't stand on people that are fasting and drink water and whatever. Don't make it like obvious. Just if so, yes, you are not fasting officially, but you are not also bragging about you're not fasting today for whatever reason. So you have to be really considerate to the people around you. That is one other part in there, right?
And you said something just then that reminded me of an earlier conversation we had as well, which I found was very interesting, because I think we were talking about it in relation to the fact that one of the things that Arabic culture gave to the world was the number 0, right? So I was kind of mentioning that as like, are those the kind of facts and historical things that we want to talk about? Because that was a big deal, right? Having that placeholder for 0 was a big deal. And then
that's one out of 120 other things. So I mean, I don't want to say that is we give you 0. That doesn't even sound good.
But what you said at the time was that the culture is such that you just don't brag on yourselves, that you don't brag on the culture. So there's some humility or something associated with the book and the teachings. And would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I found that very interesting.
Well, yeah, the one thing I can tell you is like we don't really brag about, like in the Arab culture have like Al-Khwarizmi, who was an Arabic scholar that proposed the 0, and he's creating the algorithm, the whole science of algorithm way before the Renaissance and the European Renaissance and everything. Khwarizmi and a whole bunch of scholars actually created all kind of science, and it was in Arabic and it was translated, and now the historian, the European historian, alluding us to the Arab scholar as the origin of so many, or at least a main contributor to many of the theories that has been claimed to so many other people. And even the people did it, they don't care about it because they know they get reward from the benefit of the good deed that they have done to humanity. So we don't really brag about what we're doing. If I give an example of like a current, the biggest thing last year was like intermittent fasting. You go everywhere, there's an intermittent fasting by Michael, whatever, Smith from the BBC, and everything is like, and the cholesterol goes up and this goes down and whatever. And it's all showing that fasting is one of the most powerful treatment for all kind of problem. We never really do much about that. In a way, we fast because we fast. So the science proves in a way that fasting is good, but it's usually by a non-Muslim European showing scientific evidence and funds and creating books and themes called intermittent fasting, which is a lot of people now following. And the scholars created that. But because you told me that, I took it upon myself to reenact the 120 major thing next to, because I was actually Google stuff right now. She said 120 things, like 100, it's going to be a long thing. So hopefully by the end of month of Ramadan, I get myself busy to maybe have another thing is like, what are the contributor of the Arab scholar to the contemporary science we live right now?
Well, one of those things is certainly the names of many of our stars and star systems. So that's one thing. So that's kind of interesting as well. Also makes sense that a culture that maybe had more open spaces would also be very astronomically involved. So I think my next question would be, what kinds of things do people ask you or say to you that express a situation where you wish they had a little more knowledge? What do you wish that folks in the U.S. perhaps had a little more knowledge about, and fewer misconceptions about? Anything?
Would you repeat that?
Yeah, what do you think some of the stereotypes or some of the misconceptions, that the questions that people ask you that you wish people knew more about, that you wish you didn't have to explain, or that they just knew, or that, sometimes maybe it's something that's like, really, again with this, that kind of thing?
I would say a lot of people think because it's a kingdom, it's a dictatorship. A lot of people think that we only follow orders, we don't have an opinion. A lot of people think that women have no right, it's just the media. In Saudi Arabia and in Muslim countries, women are treated well. It's kind of different. It's the way we were raised, but my rights are not taken from me as much as the people think it is. It's just the way that culture is. It's like you cannot just say, you cannot talk to somebody. Like, for example, I cannot come to you and talk about your culture, and you, Rebecca, lived here the entire life. And for me, for example, I lived here, let's say like 1 year, and I say, oh, American kill these people and these people, oh, American do this and that. I don't know anything about your life. I don't know anything about your culture. So stuff like that, do not just, like, for example, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I posted a picture of me being in Atlanta in social media. And there's a Saudi guy who texts me and he say, I heard Atlanta is not a safe place. How would you live by yourself in Atlanta? And I asked him, who said it's not safe? He said, Hollywood, people on TV, movies. I say, how can you make a judgment out of somebody who want to make money? They just put that outside just to make an action out of it. So it make very fun to watch and pay money to watch it. So stuff like that. People in the United States take the media as a way of showing people how Saudi Arabia or Islam showing people. So they're not just posting a happy family and have everything they want. They would post, oh, this man killed that woman because she did this and that. That would be a very extreme thing. And that's why it's posted. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So they want to make money. They want to grab people's attention on social media. They want them to click on that link. So they have to say something extremely, like, it's above and beyond. So you click on that link and they got more followers. So it's not that. So you cannot judge on the media itself. Am I still there?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, because my phone just rang. Yeah, so that I would say, just be aware of what you say and make your research before you make a judgment to somebody who lived like 30 years in that country and you just do not know anything but 2 hours of your life, maybe heard this and that the entire 30 years of your life. So that's not fair. I would just say, just educate yourself before you make a judgment. And that's for everybody, not only for American, for us to judge an American too. Because you and I spoke earlier about how we judge Americans. So we do that too. And eventually I realized that was wrong. I know better right now, that I must understand you guys have your own way of doing things. And I have no right to judge you unless I live the life you lived. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what I heard there was, number one is, like, realize how sensationalized the news is because they want the worst thing in the lead. That's because that's how they sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just don't extrapolate from just a little bit of information, which is what most of us have about other countries, unless we've got direct knowledge and experience of living there, and most of us don't have that.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. That's excellent. Manira, Dr. El Sanjak, is there anything that you wish people were a little bit more aware of and maybe didn't have misconceptions about?
Manira?
For me, as I said, for September 11 and the attack and everything that happened there, I hope people will understand this is not part of Islam. They will not start to judge me on this event. It's not يعني, my issue that there's some people who are crazy and they understand Islam in a bad way. I prefer always to put politic in another side. Look at me as human if I am doing something bad to you or not. And politic is something I cannot understand myself. So please don't judge me on politic things. For Islam especially, يعني, there's two topics. When people start to ask me about it, I said I am the last person that you can ask me about is hijab and marrying a lot of women. This is something, I am Muslim, but please don't ask me about it because I have my opinion. This it's not like traditional Muslims. So yeah, that is.
Okay, so to not ask about the hijab or marriage.
Yeah, you know, because in Islam, men can marry for women, and there is a lot of things there. So some people will just start to ask me, "What's your opinion?" This I have my opinion this, but it's different than Islam. So yeah, and hijab because I am from Saudi Arabia, and there's, for example, women from Kuwait or Egypt. All of us are wearing hijab in different ways. So they will start, oh, your hijab is not good. It's not like that women. It's like, don't forget that I have my personality. I will add, yani, or do something based on, yani, mixing my personality with my religion. It's not taking the religion as raw and do it.
Understood. So sometimes individual people express themselves within Islam in ways that are unique to them.
Yeah.
Okay, and all right, interesting. That reminded me a little bit of living in Iowa, where there was a very large Amish population, and you build again, you just build certain expectations based on less knowledge than you might have. But the Amish women and Mennonite and the different kinds of sects within those religions and cultures, they wore a different kind of bonnet. So if it had like kind of a little flap here, they belonged to one group, and so I think that's probably a similar thing to what I'm hearing you say about the hijab
Yeah.
in different cultures, and then in the uniqueness that it's worn by some people. Just based on their own personality. So that's very interesting. So that's sort of a personal question and just not something to casually ask someone, especially if you don't know them very well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good information. Thank you. Dr. El Sanjay, did you have something you wanted to add?
And if you ask somebody, you happen to ask somebody about something sensitive as the hijab or whatever, and he explained or she explained to you their point of view, do not come back and tell them how they supposed to think. This is probably one of the most critical things. If you wonder about the hijab, you can ask, so what is with the hijab? And she said, well, because my religion said that. Or another person says, because my culture said that. So, okay, take that and learn and keep it. Maybe ask some other people, maybe read, maybe get more opinion, whatever. But don't that person say, yeah, but you're wrong because supposed to be this. And all of a sudden, You are not asking, you're asking and give your opinion about how you're supposed to think. This is one of the most abrasive conversation we have, when somebody try to ask question and then tell you, after you already opened all your emotion to, it's like, why is this done? Then he come and tell you, yeah, but this is stupid because it's supposed to be done different. Or he didn't say stupid, but he just tell you how you're supposed to think. So if I'm going to a new culture, whether I'm in India or China or the US, or even I ask a question and I hear, and if it's not really what I want to hear, I just stop there. Especially you came and asked that question. So there is no need for you to try to tell people how they supposed to think. Just
I would add something here. For me, again, it's my personal opinion. I think, and I believe, a religion is something between the God, whoever that person believes is the God, and that person himself. So you cannot ask me why you pray this way, why you wear hijab this way, why you eat this time, why you pray 5 times, why you put your forehead to the floor. You cannot ask questions like that, because regardless, I'm a religious, like a Muslim, Christian, Hindu, whatever, that's between a person and the God. That's it. So you cannot ask me why you don't go to church. That's none of your business. If I'm doing it for me. I'm provide the service of worship to God. So you have no place to judge. You have no place to ask questions. You have no place to tell me what to do. Oh, I see this person go 5 times to pray. Why don't you pray 5 times? That's none of your business, because pray is from a person to a God directly. You have no place to judge me. You have no place to ask me questions. I would always say that. And one time my sister and I, we went to, she came to visit me, and we went to Ulta, a makeup place. So that woman, she was Muslim, she wearing hijab, and my sister was wearing hijab, and I wasn't. So she asked a question, and she said, oh, you guys, where are you from? And we say, we're from Saudi Arabia. And she said, why is your sister wearing hijab and you're not? I said, because that's my personal preference. And she said, and when we left the store, my sister was asking me, you're not reflecting Islam right. And then I stopped her and I said, hey, Islam is a religion, and I'm representing myself and myself only. And I'm not disrespecting the religion, because if I'm wearing hijab to God, I'm going to wear it to him. I'm not going to wear it to you or to people or to father or to nobody. So I would just say religion in any country, in anywhere, it's something between a person and their God. And that's it. There is nobody got to be involved in between.
Yeah, thank you. There's a reason that they say never talk about politics or religion, right?
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, there is no problem for us to have a religious conversation about the hijab when we have scholars and people background, and we can talk about it. There is no problem. We talk about what is the 4 women marriage means and where it's come from, and there are a big conversation to be had, very convincing, compelling, sequential, and half of it is vague to some people. So there are truths to be identified. But if you ask a person about something and he gives you an answer, that's the answer he gives you. Don't try to override his answer. We can bring it in the big forum and says, what is really the parameter of hijab? And you realize that the hijab has a religious angle, a social angle, more of a social than the religious, and people have different opinion about it. And that is how you have a healthy conversation if you really want to investigate something specific for a research or a paper or publication or something. But an individual to individual, listen to the individual, appreciate what he says, what she says, whether it makes sense or not, and don't override him or her, because that's what he believes.
Yeah. And one thing that I always often think about is how many similarities there are in the practices. Because, when you talk about Ramadan, I know it's very different, and at the same time, it's not completely unlike Lent, which is meant to be spiritually enriching and induce spiritual growth. The many Christian faiths, women have to have their hair, at least this much of their hair, covered when they go into church and chapel for similar reasons, right? It's meant to be respectful. The yarmulke in the Jewish faith has a similar purpose in terms of respect for the Creator and one's the generosity that we've been shown by be given life, that kind of thing. So it also helps for me to recognize how many similar practices there are based on similar concepts and ideas across the major religions, which I think is a good way to handle the individual conversations. As you say, Dr. El Sanjak, when we don't have the scholars who can really help us, and most of us are not religious scholars, and we don't understand fully all the tenets and practices of our faith. And that's what we have the imams and the priests and the rabbis for. So that's a very good point as well. Thank you. I think this might be another good time to open up for questions. If anybody has any thoughts or comments, or if they've been made curious by anything that's been shared so far. Any thoughts?
I would say, sorry, I arrived late.
Hola.
Hola. So I would say, just as going of what Asma was mentioning and what Dr. Sanda was mentioning, as in every culture, and it's okay to be curious, it's okay to ask questions, but I wouldn't want the first thing that it goes out of someone's mouth when they meet me is, where are you from? So just something as simple as of greeting the person, saying hello, asking for their name first, and then ask for questions is something just making sure that you're building at least a type of relationship with someone before you ask them about something as private as their religion or their culture or something that defines that individual's identity. So sometimes it's something as simple as that. Someone can be very reluctant to ask any questions if that's the first thing that you're going to do. But if you start building some type of relationship, it's not the same after me being able to talk with Asma, actually asking her questions about different things because we already have a relationship, and she's able to see that I might have a genuine interest in learning from her because I value her. So I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Diaz. That's a very good point. And just in terms of solidarity, I get asked where I'm from a lot as soon as I start talking. So I don't always appreciate that question in the same way, right? It's like, really, there's more to know about me than that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that question, Mrs. Cook, we entertained before. In a way, I am okay, and I'm actually happy. A lot of people, when they ask me where you're from. However, we have an agreement among like gathering like this. When somebody asks a person where are you from, and the person give him an answer, like if you ask me where I'm from, I said I'm from Atlanta. This is the answer I want to give you. I'm from Atlanta. So he replied, no, where are you really from? See, that second question is unwelcome. If I decided I want to say I am from Atlanta, I'm from Atlanta. You got to respect that. When you say where are you really from, you say, well, I know you tell me you're from Atlanta, but you don't look like you're from Atlanta. You look like are you Puerto Rican or Jamaican or Egyptian, whatever? And it's okay, but I don't know you that well to that point, because when I give you that question, I mean, here's my boundary today with you. And that is where you retrieve. Later on, if you become more comfortable with the person, maybe the person, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm from Puerto Rico, whatever. But once a person tells you that he's from Minnesota, okay, you're from Minnesota. Yeah, but you're black. Are you from Africa? Or, well, I am from Minnesota. So that is it was an interesting lesson for me because I made the same mistake, and I'm from Egypt. I was like, well, I see somebody from China. I said, where are you from? I said, I'm from America. I said, no, where are you really from? I'm not saying that I didn't do it. It's a human nature, but we have to learn that person have already given you where you need to stop. And
I did this a lot because my feature looks Indian. And when somebody asks me, where are you from? I say from Saudi Arabia, and people know Saudi Arabia. I was like, you don't look like Saudi Arabia, you look like Indian. And I get this a lot. And sometimes when the person says some stuff like that, I love India. My ancestors from India, and I appreciate that. I love Indian features, but you have no right to tell me if, as Dr. Hussain said, if I give you the answer I want to give you. If I want to extend it to, oh, I'm from Saudi Arabia, my ancestor from India, I would say that. So I get this a lot. Oh, you don't look like Saudi Arabian. Oh, you don't look like Middle Eastern. You look like Indian. Well, you have an Indian face. Well, okay, so I get this a lot, and I don't like somebody correct my answer about where I'm from. So that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, if I may say, you look more Egyptian to me than any of the other ones.
Dr. Johnson, you popped on there in the corner. Did you have a question or comment?
And I just wanted to say that I appreciate, and we apologize for being late as well, but we appreciate the separation of the religious order, the spirituality of a person and the individuality of a person. And you don't have to equate both of them. Like you can say, oh, you look like you're this, or you should be doing this because of how you were raised. Well, okay, that's how my mama did it. It's not how I'm doing it, so that individuality, it comes in all ways. And if everybody was the exact same in every culture and every ethnicity, that's the boringest ethnicity there. You don't want to be that part of their group anyway. So that being an individual really helps out with everything. And knowing that people are individuals even within their own culture, that makes everything, and it makes the culture more rich, because we're not the same monolithic person as they are used to. So yeah, the diversity is definitely needed.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really important point to always make, that even people from the same culture, same religion, they're not all the same. They're not
in the same household.
Right. Even the same household. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Any other comments or questions that people wanted to share?
I think my hypoglycemia is kicking in, because for a moment when you were guys talking, I said, oh my God, what happened to my Apple computer? I can see everything except my computer. Oh, did I forget in the cafeteria? And then I realized I am zooming from it. So.
Hey, I do that with my glasses. Oh, look, they're on my face.
Did I lose my Apple computer? Oh my God, I forgot it. Okay, I did not. Okay.
Every now and then,
you got a dip. And I was like, okay.
I shouldn't share this in public, but every now and then I lose my phone because I'm talking on it.
Yeah.
It's not in my purse, so it's like, where's my phone? Oh yeah, I'm talking on it. Oh yeah, there's that. Well, I'm glad you had a moment there, Dr. El Sanjak. Glad you're back with us. So I'm going to ask a question.
I found my computer, by the way. I'm glad I found my computer.
Yeah, I would freak right out if I couldn't find my computer. Yes. I'm going to have a question, and you may not want to answer it, but I'm just a little bit curious. When you first came to the States, what were your perceptions of Americans that sort of proved to be either, you can go either way, either true or not true or both? Did you have some conceptions that you kind of thought people were going to be like when you got here?
Are you asking me that question?
I'm asking any of you who would like to answer it, or say I'm not answering that.
I mean they can. I wasn't sure if you directed it to me, but I would invite my friends and colleagues to answer the question first, and ladies first.
Yeah, I'll start. So I came to the United States 2014, and when I walked at the University of North Florida at the first time, I thought I'm walking into a movie, because this is what we know. I've never been to the United States. The only thing I know about the United States is movies. And so when I walked and I see like white guy, black guy, short guy, tall guy, and I see exactly the same picture that I see in the movies. So from my perspective, because I'm young, I'm very like driven. I want to see, I want to learn. I have that eager in my side, inside me. I want to know more. So that's the side I saw. On the other hand, my mom, she only see the news. She see like what happened in Palestine and how America support like Israel and all of that stuff. She only see that part. And she was like, I don't want you to get killed. I see a lot of the news, people get killed for a box of pizza. People like get kidnapped, people be raping people. I don't want you to go there. And she start crying. I don't want you to go there. So that's from her point of view. And then when I came here and I saw how safe it is and how happy I was, and then eventually last year she came and visit me. So that was her breaking point. I'm like, oh, that's actually safe. What they show in movies is only a movie. I mean, it happened. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. People get killed every day, but that's not everywhere. I mean, if you live in a safe community, if you live in like gated community, a very like good neighborhood, and that would be it. If you live in a very like known university like Life University, and I took her in fact to Life University even after I graduated. So for me, I saw the United States from my side as a movie. I didn't know anything but movies, and it was like my age movies. So it was like nice, romantic, action, stuff like that. But from my mom's side, it was like horrible until she came and saw that from herself. So that's from my side.
Interesting. And isn't that often the case that what we see on the news and in movies, it's just not our daily life. So if we can get wrapped up in that and get all fearful and anxious, but if we just kind of focus on what our daily life is, it's generally very different. Thank you for sharing that. Any other, Dr. El Sanjak or Manira, did you have any thoughts about that question?
Well, social media, yeah. Actually, when I came to United States, I was expecting people to yani, be so workaholic, to I don't know, to live expensive, yani with expense way expensive, yeah. I felt like I will not be comfortable all the time. This was the main issue with me. But when I came, I realized, oh my God, it's a different story. It's something else. So yeah, I think this is media influence. As Esma said, it turns to be my kind of my dreamland country, and now I'm in Saudi Arabia, but in my retirement, of course, I will be in the United States.
Well, we will look forward to seeing you again one of these days then. So what through social media, you felt like that people would be more workaholic than they are, that they lived way expensively, everybody, and that you wouldn't be comfortable here. And by that, were maybe you saying that people wouldn't be accepting and welcoming, uncomfortable like that?
Yeah.
Well,
especially that I'm Muslim, I'm wearing my hijab, and I had heard many stories about how Americans don't accept Muslims, women, and their hijabs and all this stuff. But it turns to be the opposite, thank God.
I'm very glad that was your experience. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. El Sanjak, you came in 80, when did you say, 86?
1986, I came in. I came in with a premeditated commitment that I will not do anything or engaged in any kind of unusual, I'm gonna watch for 6 months. I'm not gonna get too friendly, or I'm not gonna get any emotional thing, whatever. For 6 months, put my head down, watch what happened, so I don't get myself in trouble, because it's my dream and I want to make sure I do the right thing. So I made a commitment for 6 months just to observe. And as Munira said it perfectly, or Asma said it perfectly, or they're both correct in two different contexts, is it was like a movie, and I'm watching a movie. But I was most impressed, like awed, with the first day I'm coming to school, and it was a 7 o'clock in the morning class, which is like, and I was like, 7 o'clock. So you wake up when? It's like, how do you be at school at 7 o'clock ready? So you wake up at 5:30, you take a shower, and then you get clean, you shave, and then you go to school. It's like, that doesn't make sense. And I walked in out of the apartment, and I'm walking, and the street at 7 o'clock was full of cars going to work at 7 a.m. To me, I was stunned, because 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, 9, 10, 11, or 12 in Egypt, there is nothing in there. There's not a soul. So 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you walk in the class, you see people glowing, ready to go. Everybody have his own persona, black and white and Chinese and whatever. It was a joy. It was definitely a joy. So I tried to talk to people, and everything. They were very helpful. They were very positive. And I remember that my first quarter was just looking and in awe. One of the other awe that I had, we had a meeting at the Stouffer Waverly. You know the Stouffer Waverly? Yeah. And I walked in and I was completely stunned, almost dropped. The entire place is air conditioned. And I'm from Egypt. Air conditioning is super luxurious to us, and it's blazing hot. I mean, you drive the car, there's no air conditioning is super luxurious. So I'm walking in a hotel lobby, and I'm looking, the entire inside is air conditioned. To me, that was a breathtaking moment. The whole entire interior is air conditioned. So I'm gonna stop here. But there's definitely a culture shock that I've seen. The best thing I can tell you about America, when I told Omar came to America also, so I told him after we talked about something like that, he says, you know something, the best answer about America, it's never exactly what you think. If I have to describe America in a sentence, it's never exactly what you think. There's no such thing as this is America. America is anything and everything you can be or you can even imagine.
Yeah. That's a good summary. Thank you. We're at quarter till, so it seems like a good time for folks to be able to add commentary or have questions. I saw Dr. Smith pop on here a minute ago. Did you have something you wanted to share, Dr. Smith?
No, I'm first of all, I'm appreciative of the panel, and I guess just being a native-born son, just to see the perceptions of how you guys see America. And we talk about America the beautiful and how so many different cultures, even within our country, sometimes even within our own neighborhoods, we have different cultures. And just the melting pot of how America is the beacon of light and how we welcome all individuals, despite of what the media sometimes says. One of the things that I learned, I have a lot of international friends, is that underneath it all, we're all about the same. We have some of the same thoughts, fears, concerns, dreams, and even aspirations that we have. I think everybody wants to do a good job. We want to be a good neighbor. I heard you guys talk about Ramadan. And I think a lot of even the Southern culture, we do that. You know, I come from Mississippi. So Dr. Johnson, so if I cook some sweet potato pie, if I have some extra pie, what do? We share with our neighbor. But nothing else. The old folks, they would freeze it for you, and you can come by whenever you stop by. They'll pull it out the freezer. That's old school there. But we do some of those same type of things. One of the things that we had a couple of years ago was Diwali. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. But it has a lot of similar themes, and even how we do with Kwanzaa. You know, doing in the African American tradition, how we also give gifts. So a lot of those practices are similar. Across cultures and belief systems. This is my belief, is that we should practice those things, not just during special seasons, but it should be part of our persona and also our actions each day of our lives. I think if we do that, we can have fulfilling lives. So I like I said, the commonality, because I'm a Christian, so I look at some of the common themes across not just religious belief, but also belief in the human race. So we say love and accept everybody.
Right.
But I do appreciate what I have learned today.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing that.
Very
I'm
nice.
reminded a little bit of Life University's compassion and integrity training, and one of the skills that we hope people, and that's more of a secular application, but there's so many commonalities. But the one that one of my favorites, one of those skills that we hope people can cultivate is that sense of common humanity. Just like you said, the ways that we're all similar, the ways that we all want to have greater happiness and less suffering in our lives, and that's true of just about every person on the planet, and we share that with them. So I love that as well about CIT, common humanity, and these conversations around inclusion and equity. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Smith. Any other questions for our panel or comments as we come near to the end of our time?
Great job.
Great
Thank-
job indeed.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Pilgrim. Glad to see you. Dr. Boyd, you popped in. Was there something you wanted to share?
Not really, but I'm so glad I got on and that someone gave me the link. I appreciate what everyone said, and I love hearing about other people's thoughts when they come to America. So I really enjoyed that, and I look forward to getting to some of your countries.
Sooner rather than later. Well, I'm just so honored to
Maybe I'll have the same experience, right?
Yeah.
Except for the movie thing, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, you will look like you are watching a movie when you come in and watch the other culture.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be a good movie.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to, I know people have places they have to be at 1 o'clock, so I think I'm going to start closing us down, and I just cannot thank Dr. Hussein El-Sanjak enough for being part of this today and sharing his experience, and the same for Asma Al-Hindi. Very glad you could be here. Munira Al-Khalifi, you have, and I know I slaughtered that, you had probably the toughest time being with us today in terms of distance and the timing from where you are in Saudi. So thank you very much for your willingness to meet with us before today at times that were less convenient for you, and certainly today at a time that was less convenient for you. So many thanks to you especially. Any other? Thank you. And thanks to everyone who could be with us today. Very, very happy to have had members of the Life community.